I saw a question online. What's it like to have a twin sibling who is 100 times more accomplished than you? I replied, accepted my fate, made my peace with it. I even posted an 8-year-old video of my sister and me practicing violin. We'd both had 3 lessons. My sister played Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star beautifully, clear and melodic. My rendition of Chaconne from Partita No. 2, BWV 1004, however, sounded like a dull saw cutting through wood. But the comments section exploded. Holy cow, OP, are you seriously not humble bragging? Playing a piece as difficult as Chaconne from Partita No. 2, BWV 1004, that precisely after only 3 lessons. As a 10-year art student, I swear if I had 1% of OP's talent, I'd be at Berkeley by now. I was stunned. Growing up, my mother had always been fair, fully supporting both my sister and me. Yet, no matter what I did, I always seemed to fail. It often made my mother secretly shed tears and sigh in disappointment. After a while, I couldn't bear to cause her worry or sadness, so I proactively gave up on every opportunity. I just focused on being the ordinary, dutiful child. How could someone like me possibly be a genius? A new comment popped up, hitting me like a lightning bolt. OP, that violin of yours? It's barely worth $100. Looks like a cheap fire poker. And your sister's violin? That's a $5,000 instrument. I stared fixedly at the screen, my hands trembling as I searched for the prices of the 2 violins. It was exactly as the netizens had said. A cold sweat immediately broke out on my back. A tidal wave of immense shock and bewilderment crashed over me, leaving me breathless. From outside, I heard my mother's joyous, excited voice. Dazed, I walked out to see her video calling my sister. Didn't you say you wanted to go skiing for the new year? Mom bought you a new snowboard. Seeing me, she pointed her chin towards her feet. One for each of you girls. This one's yours. My feet felt as if they were nailed to the floor, unable to move an inch. Ever since I was little, my mother had always been like this. Whether it was academics or material possessions, my sister and I each had our own. I had always believed she was the fairest, best mother in the world. But today, my world had suddenly crumbled into ruins. Seeing me standing there, pale-faced, my mother looked puzzled. Why are you just standing there, spacing out? Before I could speak, my sister laughed. Mom, don't you remember when my sister and I went skiing as kids and she broke her leg and was in a cast for 3 months? She giggled. She probably has PTSD from seeing this. How could she be happy? My mother seemed to recall the memory, shaking her head with a resigned, bitter smile. Yes, your sister has always been clumsy since childhood. She can't compare to you in anything she tries. I had heard that sentence for over a decade. I had grown accustomed to it, forcing myself to accept my fate and let it go. But now, countless questions were stuck in my throat, as if a hand had brutally choked me. Clutching the snowboard, I fled back to my room, feeling utterly lost. The first thing I did was check the price. The results slapped me hard again. My sister's snowboard was a professional brand, costing $1,000. Mine was a mere $50. Not even a fraction of my sister's. My hands trembling, I posted a plea for help online. Is this board okay for New Year skiing? The comments quickly piled up. Oh my God, I urge you to throw that trash away as soon as possible. That snowboard is dangerous. I bought a cheap one once, and it split in half while I was skiing. I almost broke my neck. My nails dug deeply into my palm. In my mind, I kept replaying scenes from that ski lesson when I was 10. My sister, though slow to start, glided steadily. I, however, wobbled constantly, falling again and again. Back then, I held onto a spark of determination. I wanted to prove to my mother that as her daughter, I was no worse than my sister. But the harder I tried, the more brutally I fell. In the icy snow, I finally couldn't hold back my tears. Everyone thought I was crying from the pain of my broken leg. Only I knew. I hated myself for being so utterly useless. Why couldn't I do anything right? Why couldn't I be like my sister, earning my mother's praise and becoming her pride. But now, the whole world was telling me, it wasn't my clumsiness, it wasn't my fault. All of this was merely a result of my mother's profound selfishness hidden beneath a facade of fairness. That night, I excused myself from dinner, claiming to feel unwell. I burrowed deep under my covers, tears streaming uncontrollably, again and again, until my skin felt tight and painful. I didn't know how to face the deep-seated resentment in my heart, nor how to expose this cruel truth. For several nights, I couldn't sleep. In my anxious torment, my sister finally came home. Relatives gathered around her, showering her with affection and concern. University in New York is great, but it's so far. Your mom can't stop talking about how much she misses you. My mother, serving fruit, smiled at this, then sighed. As long as the children are ambitious and successful, I fully support both of them flying far away. She paused, then added, it's a shame, though. We enrolled both of them in a summer camp in New York when they were in elementary school. Chloe got perfect scores in every subject, but Lillian could only manage barely passing grades. My fingers, gripping the wall, tightened fiercely. The relatives burst into laughter at her words. Oh, it's fine to be a little less academic, dear. It's nice to have her around, steady and close. I still remember back then Lillian was so stressed about her grades that she got sick in New York, throwing up and running a high fever. You were almost scared to death. The atmosphere in the living room remained warm and jovial. Chloe, I heard you won another violin competition? Haha, play something for us. My sister smiled confidently, rising gracefully. Of course, I'll play Chaconne from Partita No. 2, BWV 1004 then. The melodious violin notes filled the air. Everyone smiled, full of praise. My mother's gaze remained fixed on my sister, her eyes openly expressing admiration and satisfaction. It was as if she were looking at the most dazzling jewel in the world, the most beautiful flower among the mountains. All of this caused my tightly strung nerves to suddenly snap. Amidst everyone's startled gasps, I lunged forward. I snatched the violin from my sister's hands and, like a madwoman, smashed it against the wall. My sister shrieked in terror at the sudden turn of events. My mother's face instantly twisted, and she rose abruptly. Lillian Miller, what on earth are you doing? A stinging slap caught me off guard across my face. After it landed, the air hung still for a few seconds. Even my mother herself was momentarily stunned. But only for an instant. Then she stiffened her neck again. Who are you glaring at with that dark face? What did anyone say that was wrong? She snapped. You are clumsier and dumber than Chloe, that's a fact. Her voice rose, dripping with contempt. To be so jealous of your own sister, I didn't realize you were so narrow-minded and petty. Seeing her temper flare, many people discreetly gestured at me. Yes, Lillian, for all these years, your mother has cultivated both you and your sister with equal care. We've all seen it. No one can find a single fault. It's okay to be a little less capable, but if your personality and temper are also so terrible, that's truly inexcusable. The chorus of accusations felt like ropes tightening around my heart. I couldn't bear it any longer. I rushed back to my room and pulled out several items. Open your eyes and look closely, I demanded. Has my mother truly been fair to my sister and me? I forcefully shoved the $100 violin into my sister's hands. If you're so talented, play Chaconne from Partita No. 2, BWV 1004 again with this. My mother's face immediately changed. A flash of panic and guilt crossed her eyes. She lunged forward, trying to snatch the violin, clearly wanting to smash it to destroy the evidence. Lillian Miller, stop being so unreasonable. At that moment, my disappointment and pain reached their peak. My mother bought me this trashy violin, but bought my sister a $5,000 premium one. I yelled. She made me, with perfect pitch, sound like I was making horrible noise. And when you made my sister and me go skiing, you bought me all this garbage gear, which resulted in me breaking my leg and nearly being permanently disabled. After hearing my accusations, everyone was stunned, looking from me to my mother in unison. Eleanor, is what Lillian's saying true? This isn't right. How can you treat your children so differently? My mother glared fiercely at me. Then she turned, went back to her room, and returned with a stack of receipts. So, you resent me just because I chose a slightly cheaper violin for you? She spat. Then why don't you mention that when we signed up for that summer camp, your sister's class was only $300, but yours was $5,000. Aunt Clara immediately snatched the receipts, scrutinizing them carefully. Eleanor isn't lying. She turned to me. Lillian, this is you being unreasonable. Your mother is famously fair and unbiased. We all know that. You can't accuse her like this over a small matter and break your mother's heart. I nearly screamed in frustration. But I didn't even need that expensive summer camp. The class my mother enrolled my sister in was a foundational one, tailored to her aptitude. That's why she steadily improved, getting perfect scores every time. I, however, was put into an advanced calculus class. I couldn't keep up even if I starved myself and didn't sleep. Not only that, but I was constantly discouraged, feeling as stupid as a pig. After that, whenever my mother wanted to enroll me in any tutoring, that nightmarish experience would make me tremble, and I would refuse to participate again. But after I said all that, my mother showed no sign of remorse. You were born a few hours before your sister. Of course, I had higher expectations for you and was stricter with you. She paused, her voice rising in indignation. Is that wrong too? Does that become an excuse for you to attack your own mother? She scoffed. A poor student is a poor student. What does the quality of the stationery have to do with it? By your logic, everyone should buy a $1,000 pen and then they'll all ace their exams. The relatives were immediately swayed by her argument. Their accusing, pitying gazes fell on me. Oh, these kids nowadays. If anything doesn't go their way, they blame heaven, earth, and their parents. Another relative chimed in. She clearly had the opportunity and didn't use it. Even if Eleanor tried 18 different approaches, Lillian would still be full of resentment today. My father, now furious, grabbed my arm. You ungrateful girl, apologize to your mother right now. He snarled. It's a holiday, and you insist on causing such a ruckus. But I, uncharacteristically, stubbornly refused to bow my head. All the resentment and defiance suppressed in my heart for so many years erupted at once. The relatives quickly rushed forward again, trying to mediate. Lillian, you're just young. You haven't experienced the hardships of the real world. One relative admonished. You see your sister doing well, you feel unbalanced, and you're taking all your anger out on your mother. Another added, but in reality, if it weren't for your mother's tireless efforts to support and nurture you all these years, who knows how miserably you'd have turned out. Those rebellious girls out there, those factory workers on the assembly line, that could have been your fate. Exactly. A third chimed in. You need to know your place. You can't be too ambitious, thinking you're better than you are. A surge of anger shot from my feet to my head. My eyes red, I retorted loudly. If it weren't for my mother's actions, I could have been brilliant and accomplished, instead of reduced to this mediocre, ordinary person. My mother slumped onto the sofa. The usually strong woman suddenly clutched her chest and began to cry. I put my heart and soul into raising her, and she turns out to be an ungrateful viper who bites the hand that feeds her. She wailed. I never imagined that one day the accusation of being biased and malicious would fall upon me. It's a curse. Everything I do is wrong. Fine, it's all my fault. Are you satisfied now? Seeing my mother so distraught, my father fumed, pacing frantically. He grabbed the clothesline pole from the balcony and whipped it fiercely across my back. You've gone too far. Ungrateful for all the good we've done for you. He shouted. Then today I'll show you what partiality and abuse truly mean. I staggered from the blow, completely stunned. But then I suddenly realized this pain was nothing. It wasn't even 1% of the pain from my broken leg. And it certainly wasn't the heartbreak of being looked down upon and scorned by everyone for all these years. To be honest, at this moment, I wish that my parents had given me a strict, disciplinary education all these years. that they had motivated me to strive for excellence. Instead of a facade of fairness, a superficial nurturing that, in reality, brutally suppressed all my talents and ruined my future. The relatives were startled and rushed to hold back my father. "Oh dear, she's just young and doesn't understand. Don't get so angry," one pleaded. "Lillian, hurry up and apologize and don't bring these things up again. People will laugh at us." I touched my sleeve, where the pole had left an indentation, and smiled defiantly. "I'm not wrong," I stated, my voice clear and unwavering. "The one who should apologize is my mother. She owes my life an apology." My unyielding attitude completely enraged my mother. She sat up, gritting her teeth. "Lillian Miller, I was actually going around asking favors, trying to get you a stable contract job after you graduate." She sneered. "Now, it seems I don't need to bother. It would just be wasted effort on an ungrateful dog." Everyone gasped. "Lillian, did you hear that? Your mother thinks of everything for you. Don't be foolish," one relative warned. "Leave your mother. With just your average college degree, you'll have trouble finding a job after graduation. You won't even be able to support yourself." A dark current flickered in my mother's eyes, but on the surface, she looked utterly heartbroken by me. Let her go. Didn't she claim I ruined her? That she's a great genius? She challenged. "Let everyone watch. Without my arrangements, we'll see if she soars or crashes and burns." My voice was icy, completely unintimidated. "It's a deal," I declared. "From now on, my life is my own to decide. You can't interfere and you can't object." My mother sighed, agreeing. "Oh, I just hope you won't come crying back, begging for forgiveness later." Everyone saw my resolute determination and could only shake their heads with sighs. Their faces were all etched with the unspoken words, "This girl is doomed." Suddenly, my mother's phone rang. She answered it with a look of suspicion. "Hello, this is Lillian Miller's mother. Hello, Professor." The next second, her expression froze, and she looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. "What did you say?" Perhaps she was too emotional. My mother's finger slipped, accidentally activating the speakerphone. My professor's voice immediately boomed out. "Haha, Mrs. Miller, you must be surprised. I was calling to say that Lillian Miller's application for the study abroad program has been successfully approved. It's also fortunate that she submitted her materials promptly these past few days. If it had been a few days later, the relevant office would have closed for the holidays." The professor's tone was both relieved and joyful. Unfortunately, he couldn't see my mother's pale, stunned face. "No, this isn't possible," she stammered. "Professor, are you sure? Are you certain it's my daughter? Could it be a namesake, and you've notified the wrong person?" The professor chuckled. "Don't worry, even I was surprised. Lillian Miller has always been hesitant about applying to study abroad, wanting to give up." He was right. My professor had even called me in for several private talks about it. He seemed utterly exasperated when I told him I didn't want to leave home, didn't want to be too far from my parents. Fortunately, she finally came to her senses and made it in during the last few days. Yes. Fortunately, I had come to my senses. In an explosive, almost accidental way. This unexpected news completely stunned my mother. The relatives, each more surprised than the last, eagerly crowded around. "Really? Lillian's grades have always been so mediocre. How could she suddenly be going to study abroad? It must be one of those fake, unaccredited universities. No real value at all. She'll just go out there, spend a fortune of the family's money living it up for a few years, and hundreds of thousands of dollars will all go down the drain." Hearing these comments, my mother finally snapped out of her daze. Her eyes suddenly lit up. "Exactly, that's most likely it." She looked at me, a cruel glint in her eyes. "But Lillian Miller, didn't you just accuse me of being biased, of deliberately harming you since childhood, and tell me you didn't want me to meddle in your life anymore? Well, that's perfect. I won't pay a single cent for your study abroad. Let's see where you get the money for tuition and living expenses without me." Her expression gradually shifted from shock to triumph. but my heart sank inch by inch. These past few days, I had clung to a sliver of fantasy. A fantasy that my mother, upon hearing I was going to study abroad, would be genuinely happy for me, supporting me without hesitation. But reality once again delivered a resounding slap. Her every word and action made it clear. She truly didn't want me to soar. I sighed deeply, about to speak, when the professor's voice chimed in again. Everyone, you've misunderstood. Lillian Miller's academic performance at school is excellent. She's going to a top 3 university abroad and has also secured a full national scholarship and various subsidies. His voice was cheerful. There's absolutely no need for parents to worry about tuition and living expenses. I stared directly at my mother's face, not missing even the slightest change in her expression. By the end, I curled my lips into a self-mocking smile. Seeing things hurtling in a direction she had never envisioned and couldn't control, my mother finally panicked. The arm holding her phone trembled slightly. "Lillian Miller, why have you never told me about such a major matter?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Do you even consider me your mother anymore?" My face hardened slightly. "If I had told you, would you have agreed?" She didn't need to answer. The answer was already obvious. A wave of desolation rose from my feet to my heart. Never mind. Saying all this now is meaningless. I took a deep breath. After all, we just agreed. From now on, we won't interfere with each other's lives. I delivered the final blow. Besides, even if you said no now, it wouldn't matter. I watched her carefully. The materials have been submitted. The process is complete. No one can stop me from going abroad. My mother's words, just on the tip of her tongue, choked back. Her face flushed involuntarily. It was the surrounding relatives who quickly accepted this major news. Their tone shifted, and they began discussing me with keen interest. I never knew Lillian was so modest, so capable. So, everything she said earlier must be true then? Otherwise, how could she have soared like this after going to college and escaping Eleanor's complete control? Oh dear, Eleanor must be absolutely seething. At all times, she tore into her eldest daughter right before getting this call. What do you think, now that Lillian is going abroad, will she ever come back? At the last question, all the color drained from my mother's face. By now, the surrounding chatter and discussion could no longer shake my resolve. I turned, intending to go back to my room. "Aunts and uncles, I won't be joining you all for much longer." I paused. "There's no New Year abroad and classes will start soon. I need to pack my luggage." With that, I turned and walked away without looking at anyone's expression. The door closed firmly. Yet, I felt as if a crack had opened in my heart. It was the relief of no longer having to constantly doubt myself. It was also the hope of seeing a reward after years of hard work. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in our entire family dropped to freezing point. Eventually, my mother was the first to approach me. This was the first time my mother and I had seen each other since that explosive confrontation. She looked haggard, her eyes red and swollen, as if she had cried many times. She pressed a property transfer deed into my hand. "Lillian, I've thought about it carefully these past few days. I'm sorry for how I treated you in the past." As soon as the words left her lips, 2 lines of tears streamed down her face, her voice thick with emotion. "Your mother made some foolish mistakes, but it was absolutely not what you think, not malicious or trying to harm you. She said that this house, worth over $1 million, would be transferred solely to my name. My sister would receive nothing." Seeing me silently accept the property deed, my sister quickly chimed in. "Yes, sister, we're both Mom's children. How could she not love you?" She added, "Don't think that just because I'm studying in New York, it's so great. My future salary will only be enough to rent a tiny 10-square-meter apartment. Not like you, who won't have a mortgage and can eat Dad and Mom's cooking every day. Isn't that another kind of happiness?" My father, on the side, was also working hard to persuade me. "There's no such thing as an overnight grudge between mother and daughter. You caused such a scene that day, exposing Mom and making her lose face in front of all our relatives. She's been punished enough." He continued, his voice strained. Do you really want our family to fall apart? Do you want us to become the laughingstock of all our relatives and friends? I casually flipped through the property deed. On it, indeed, was only my name. I suddenly smiled, my tone light. Okay, thank you, Mom. She immediately breathed a sigh of relief, her tears turning into a smile. My father and sister exchanged glances, satisfaction flickering in their eyes. Lillian, since you've accepted the property deed, how about putting your study abroad plans on hold for now? Seeing my silence, my mother quickly added, at least wait until after the New Year's Eve dinner to leave. My father quickly nodded in agreement. Yes, you've never left our side since you were little. Suddenly flying to a foreign country where you don't know anyone, even if you don't care, your mother and I can't feel at ease. I nodded casually, seemingly appreciative. Then I suddenly asked a question. Mom, there's only one thing I can't understand. I looked from her to my sister. Why are you so biased towards her and not me? Now, I had only this one lingering question. I desperately wanted to resolve it before I left. My mother's face stiffened. She stammered for a long time before finally speaking. When you were born, you tormented me for over 10 hours. I almost died from the pain. Unlike your sister, who came out smoothly in just a few minutes. She paused, then continued. Afterward, I consulted a fortune teller about both your birth charts. He said you were destined to clash with me, while your sister was a lucky star. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense, so My expression was one of bewildered numbness. A lump formed in my chest, neither swallowing nor rising. That's it. My mother also looked awkward, but from the deepest parts of her eyes, I could still sense that she felt she had done nothing wrong. Many things later also validated the fortune teller's words. I felt that the more I suppressed you, the more at peace I felt, and the more energetic I became. Absurd. It was utterly absurd. Yet I believe my mother was telling the truth. There was just one thing I didn't agree with. She didn't truly believe in a fortune teller's prophecy. She simply hated me, using me as a punching bag to vent her life's hardships and misfortunes, thereby satisfying her own twisted pleasure. She was like a terrifying vampire, draining my blood to satisfy her own energy and malice. Even now, she still treats me like a fool. A piece of paper, a property transfer deed, was meant to be a cocoon that would trap me for the next few decades of my life. But what she didn't know was that these past 2 nights, in the dead of night, I had already secretly slipped into the study. There was a safe there, which my mother usually guarded with great care. I suddenly wanted to know what was hidden inside. But after entering my parents' birthdays, the password showed as incorrect. Entering my birthday, also incorrect. I remained silent for a long time, then finally entered my sister's birthday, although we were twins, due to a few minutes difference. Our birth dates were a day apart. The safe opened with a click inside. There was a thick stack of documents. Insurance policies, fixed-term investments, bank trusts. The beneficiary on every single document was the same name, Chloe Miller, my sister. In the darkness, I covered my face, wiping away tears. Deep love plans far ahead. My mother had meticulously prepared for my sister's next 50 years of security. Yet, she tried to trap me at the bottom of a well with an old house in a 4th-tier city. This frog of mine, it was time to see the world beyond the well. So, I had already reaffirmed my inner conviction countless times, let alone this small offering of an apology. Even if it were 10 or 100 times more, I would not be swayed. The only lingering resentment was for the question I had asked. The answer was laughable, and it completely served all my lingering hopes. Seeing my silence, my mother's eyes darted. She quickly softened her tone. Your mother knows she was wrong. Let's not bring up the past anymore, she offered. On New Year's Eve, your mother will cook all your favorite dishes. How about that?
She paused.
But then, you also need to change your attitude. After all, relatives and friends will be watching. We need to let them know that mother and daughter have resolved their issues and made up, right? I smiled faintly, a self-deprecating, sarcastic twist to my lips. Yet, in my heart, I silently told myself, Lillian Miller, From now on, you might never have another New Year's Eve like this. On a night when my mother had dropped her guard, when my father thought everything was perfectly resolved, and when my sister slept soundly, free of worries, I quietly left. The plane landed. Back home, it was snowing, bitter winter. But in the city where my university was located, flowers were blooming. The courses and life after enrollment were incredibly busy. But I found it good. This kind of busyness allowed me to focus all my energy on myself. The completely unfamiliar environment and people prevented me from recalling the shadows of the past. But slowly I realized, this busyness didn't trouble me for too long. Here, all the professors and classmates praised me endlessly, in a somewhat exaggerated way. "Lon, you're amazing. Oh my God, how did you debug that program? Oh Lon, you absolutely must accept our violin club's invitation. You're a true genius." The next time I played Chaconne from Partita No. 2, BWV 1004, tears suddenly streamed down my face. In that moment, countless memories flooded my mind. I wondered if I had been allowed to pursue my talents without interference and suppression from childhood. Would I, by now, have already stood on the most prestigious stages of art, performing in front of tens of thousands, shining brilliantly? I also wondered, what was the scene at home like after I left without saying goodbye on New Year's Eve? On New Year's Eve, would my mother knock on my door, calling me out for dinner? Would she and the relatives be able to eat when they found I was gone? Would my mother be furious, or heartbroken? Or perhaps, as the days passed, would she truly realize her mistakes? Slowly, my melody shifted from fragmented to resolute. The past was past. There were no ifs. No need to guess. What I needed to do was look forward. The world was vast and open. This little fish of mine could now soar freely. It was half a year later when I received a call from my family, reaching me through circuitous means. When I heard my father's clumsy pronunciation of my Chinese name for my professor, I felt a jolt. It was my father. He seemed to have exhausted all contacts, my domestic university professors, classmates, and friends, finally tracking down my overseas university professor's contact information. After a terse hello, we both fell into a brief silence. My father's voice sounded much older, but his words were like a bombshell. "Your mother has been diagnosed with breast cancer." He paused, his voice cracking. "Lillian, come home for a visit. Your mother misses you very much." I gripped my phone tightly, feeling a mix of panic and deep suspicion. "Dad, you're not lying to trick me, are you?"
I pressed on.
"Is this another one of Mom's new schemes, trying to lure me back, to continue to trip me up?" My father's breathing hitched for a moment. "You ungrateful girl. How can you say that?" he bellowed. "Would your mother curse herself with cancer for no reason? How can you say something like that? Do you have no conscience? Do you want me to send you the hospital reports?" He scoffed. "Humph, you unfilial daughter, enjoying yourself abroad. Your father, a man. How am I supposed to take care of your mother?" I'm almost dead from exhaustion. Hearing his emotional outburst, I actually believed him. I had even thought he might have changed, but it seemed he was still putting on his usual patriarchal airs. I even realized, all these years, how he could not have known about my mother's favoritism. After all, he must have been aware of the family's finances and what was happening. But to seek an easy life, to avoid trouble, my father had chosen to turn a blind eye, pretending ignorance. If my mother were the executioner, he was the accomplice who willingly handed her the knife. After realizing all this, my initial flicker of worry and softness instantly froze over. What's more, I saw the medical reports he sent. Fortunately, I wasn't the naive fool I used to be. The breast cancer was real, but it was early stage. With proper chemotherapy and surgery, there was a high probability of controlling it. "It's strange. Why are you going through all this trouble to call me, instead of finding help closer to home?" asked, my voice calm. "Isn't my sister still there? She's graduated now. She can go home and take care of Mom." But I hadn't expected that mentioning Chloe, their always cherished daughter, would make my father explode. "Don't even mention that ungrateful little brat," he fumed. Now that your mother is sick, between tipping doctors, hiring nurses, and all the surgery, medication, and nutrition costs, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I frowned and suddenly understood my parents' predicament. All these years, my mother had poured all her energy into elevating my sister, opting for the best and most expensive tutoring, classes, and cultivation. Although the family earned a decent income, they didn't have much in savings. And that house had been transferred to my name without my permission. It couldn't be sold. Not to mention they couldn't even get in touch with me. Given all this, sure enough, my father complained bitterly. We wanted to withdraw money from the investment insurance we set up for your sister, but she actually cried and refused. He yelled into the phone, his voice laced with resentment. For all these years, your mother has never treated her badly, has she? What sin did our family commit to raise two such unfilial daughters? I curved my lips into a silent, cold smile. Talk about her? Fine. But don't drag me into it. If anyone was an ungrateful viper, it was only Chloe. Besides, it was no wonder she was unwilling. Those investments and trusts usually had mandatory terms and notarized stipulations. If the rules were violated and the money was forcibly withdrawn prematurely, not only would they forfeit the massive profits, but probably even a portion of the principal would be lost. And I had looked carefully at the documents back then. Those investments were set to start yielding benefits only after Chloe graduated. But my mother had been diagnosed with cancer precisely at this time. What a coincidence. Perhaps this was truly destiny. Dad, I'm not coming back and don't contact me again, I added, a sharp edge to my voice. Didn't Mom say I was her jinx and my sister was her lucky star? What if she sees me and gets so angry her condition worsens? Before my father could explode again, I quickly threw in a few more sentences. Of course, I'm not a cold-blooded person. I continued. Mom nurtured me for so many years. We'll settle the bill once and for all, and I'll transfer the money for her treatment.
It was a shame, though.
The final sum wouldn't be much. After all, apart from that expensive summer camp fee of several $1,000s, my mother had spent on me only the cheapest things. A $100 violin, a $50 snowboard, and countless other junk items that seemed equally distributed, but whose quality was vastly inferior to my sister's. I hoped this amount would be enough for my mother's treatment. This was all I could do. Then, ignoring my father's furious curses, I hung up the phone directly. At the same time, I told my professor to put that number on the blacklist. My memory was excellent. The bill was quickly calculated. I transferred the money back, down to the last penny. After this, my father didn't contact me again. Perhaps he couldn't reach me anymore. Or perhaps that money was indeed enough for my mother's treatment. Time flowed on, seasons changing. I completed my postgraduate studies and then joined an orchestra for a global tour. This was also the first time I had set foot on my homeland since leaving. The tour stop was scheduled for New York. I thought that being so far from my hometown, I wouldn't run into anyone I knew. But I never imagined that simply stepping out of the hotel to buy a few things, I would encounter my mother. She had changed so drastically. I almost didn't recognize her. In just a few years, she looked as if she had aged 20. Her back was hunched, and faded clothes hung loosely on her emaciated frame, looking empty. She was at the entrance of a convenience store, collecting discarded cardboard from the businesses. Seeing my furrowed brow and complex gaze, an older woman in a cleaner's uniform approached, gossiping readily. "Look at her, isn't she just pathetic?" she whispered. "Let me tell you, don't pity her for a second. She brought it all on herself." My fingers tightened slightly. "Oh, how so?" The woman, seeing I was interested, brightened up. "Same old story, favoritism, you know. I heard she drove her most obedient and filial elder daughter to run away from home."
She paused.
"As for her younger daughter, she works for a very good company, a white-collar job, you know." The woman leaned closer. "But, apparently, her younger daughter is utterly ashamed of her. I hear she's dead set on marrying into a wealthy family, very ambitious, so of course, she wouldn't want rich people knowing she has such a down-and-out mother."
She scoffed again.
"But I don't think her daughter has a chance. This is New York. Does she think she's so high and mighty just because she can play a bit of violin? Uffed. Kids here are all talented from a young age. Even my daughter plays piano. Truly wealthy people wouldn't even look twice at such a half-baked show-off. I sighed softly. This was the beloved sister my mother had favored for 22 years, held in the palm of her hand. In the end, she had raised a character with an inflated ego and a selfish nature. And her husband? I asked. Doesn't he intervene? Doesn't he take care of her? The woman pursed her lips. Men. How many of them can you truly rely on? She shook her head. I heard she had a serious illness before, and within 2 years her husband got fed up and divorced her. He's probably remarried by now. I fell into a deep silence. Seeing my quietness, the woman assumed I wasn't interested in such topics. She noticed the violin case behind me and tentatively asked, "Young lady, do you play the violin too? How good are you?" I raised an eyebrow and pointed to the most artistically prominent landmark concert hall in the distance. My orchestra and I are performing there tonight. If you're interested, you can bring your daughter to watch. I pulled a VIP ticket from my pocket and handed it to her. The woman gasped, her face lighting up with joy. Oh my, these tickets are thousands each. Thank you, thank you. She beamed, such a fine young lady. You must be very accomplished, and your family must be very well off, right? I can tell at a glance that your parents must have invested heavily in you. I smiled faintly, preparing to leave. Not quite. I said, my voice barely audible. Sometimes, where effort is given, no flower blooms. But malicious attempts to break a willow only make it grow stronger into a resilient shade. Now, I had grown into a towering tree. Nothing could ever destroy me or stifle me again. Outside, the woman collecting cardboard suddenly looked up, glancing around. She thought she heard her elder daughter's voice. She took urgent steps forward, her aged face etched with regret and longing. "Lillian," she called out, a desperate plea in her voice. "Did you come to find Mom? Have you forgiven me?" However, within the plate glass window, only the figure of the cleaning lady dragging her mop remained. I had already quietly left. Just like that New Year's Eve so long ago. No goodbyes needed, no farewells to be spoken. Fate had already written the chapter. I was meant to stand on a grand stage, to perform a more magnificent and glorious life. The end.